Good. How are you?
I am well, thank you.
Yeah. Can you hear me all right on your
Yeah,
side?
I hear you perfectly.
Awesome. Awesome.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, you too. This is really nice to have right now, to have this face-to-face conversation every once in a while.
I think about that often. I can barely remember life without this kind of interface, and the value that it has at times like this is just unbelievable.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I've been doing it each day this week thus far, and I feel like I'm in a far better mental state just having like real conversations with people and seeing their faces.
Oh, absolutely. It makes such a big difference.
Yeah, yeah. Well, how are you? How have you been doing?
I've been doing well. It's been an interesting experience, as I'm sure everyone would confirm. It's unusual. I'm learning a lot about myself. I'm learning a lot about people in general, about the society that we now live in, how it reacts, how this type of situation brings out the best and the worst in people. And it's been a very interesting experience. I mean, one that I would have rather avoided if I had an option, but I am getting actually a lot out of it.
Yeah, it seems like a really interesting time to be a brand as well, just because I chatted a little bit with our guests yesterday about that, but just as a brand, like how do you communicate with your followers or your shoppers in a time like this?
Well, we're very fortunate in the sense that we're a direct-to-consumer brand. That's our DNA.
Hmm.
So communicating through this kind of interface and other interfaces like this is basically what we do. This is our bread and butter. This is how we conduct our business. So it's been obviously a change of gears. There's a different totem pole of values, what matters, what needs to get done. But it's been all right. It's been very interesting to communicate with our customers in this way.
Yeah, yeah, I feel like there's an opportunity to like connect on a deep level, or there's an opportunity to kind of maybe communicate in a way that maybe makes your shoppers not want to be connected with you anymore. Like depending on the way that brands approach it, I feel like there's kind of extremes that could happen right now.
Yeah, like I said, it brings out the best and the worst in people. And it's a very, in some ways, and I do qualify that, in some ways, it's very much a separation of the wheat from the chaff. So you have this kind of filter that is suddenly, no pun intended, but is suddenly there to kind of show you aspects of brands as well as human beings that you may not have been privy to before.
Yeah, totally. It's kind of like what we've been talking about in the fashion industry. It's almost like there are all these cracks in the system that have been there for a long time, and there's broken aspects of it. And it's almost like this is bringing them further to the surface and kind of exposing them.
I agree. And this is something that we've been talking about as a brand from the very beginning, is the fact that the fashion industry is broken, and that, it needs to be maybe broken even further and then reconstituted as something entirely new, much more inclusive and much more diverse than perhaps it has been until now.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Well, before we kind of like spiral down this direction, I want to give our listeners an idea to learn more about what you do in your brand. So can you, I guess, give us an idea of what led you to want to build Universal Standard?
At the very bottom of all of this is self-interest from a very personal, private perspective. I could never find clothes that I wanted to wear. I couldn't find clothes that I felt represented me as the person that I wanted to be. I didn't feel equal to my peers. And I felt very much led by a very indifferent industry towards things that I didn't want to have. I didn't want to wear. I didn't want to present myself in those ways to the world. And I think that is a huge handicap. It really is a handicap in the sense that you have to fight harder in order to present yourself the way you need to, because people do make snap judgments based on what they see. And so, you know, I always make a joke about the fact that, you know, the reason we started Universal Standards because I couldn't find a t-shirt that didn't have a puppy or a kitten on it. So there was this very much this kind of like, you were either infantilized or you were hypersexualized. And I couldn't find, let's say, my trope. I couldn't find that kind of easy dress, classic look that allowed me to, first of all, maximize all the clothes in my wardrobe, how I wear things. And second of all, look modern and look like I know what I'm talking about when it comes to style. So that was the huge impetus. Of course, there was a tipping point between my business partner, Paulina, and myself. You know, it came about quite innocently. I'd been thinking about it for many, many years, obviously, because I had been writing about fashion, and I really felt I was at this weird crossroads between having incredible access to all that was happening and yet being completely excluded because of my size. So Paulina, my business partner, she's tiny. So it was very interesting for me to see her reaction when I said I wasn't going to attend an event because I didn't have anything to wear. Because her reaction was literally like, you know, if this was a cartoon, that'd be like question marks popping up around her head. She's like, what do you mean? Let's go get you something. And I said, you know, there's not a single shop on all of Fifth Avenue that I can walk into and buy clothes for myself. Not one. And I think at first she wasn't quite sure whether I was exaggerating or not. So I said, okay, you come with me. And we went to Bloomingdale's, and we went past all these beautifully merchandised floors with special lighting and beautiful music and, you know, very smart looking attendants everywhere, salespeople. And we got to the furniture floor in the northeast corner, you know, amongst the throw pillows and last year's bathing suits and, you know, prom dresses that didn't sell, was this tiny little corner that I got to pick my persona out of, where I was allowed to declare myself from a visual perspective. And it was awful. I mean, it's polyester and differently made, you know, the difference between one size and the next was egregious, you know, so you just knew that whoever was putting this together couldn't care less. So I think the penny sort of dropped, and we decided to do this. We decided to pull this together, and with her incredible knowledge of business, her ability to really sort of lead a company, because her background is from the private equity side, although nothing to do with fashion ever before. So we were very much novices in this process. But yeah, we decided to pool our resources and start Universal Standard.
It's amazing. I mean, it's just so messed up that you had such a tiny amount of options to choose from when fashion is like so much of identity. And like you were kind of saying, you know, it's like that's all you could choose from to present yourself to the world. And how you want to...
I always say it's the armor you wear into the world. You know, when you're wearing what you want to be wearing and you're showing yourself the way that you want to show yourself, it's a very powerful emotional like strength. You know, you walk into a room and you're not apologizing for yourself from that first moment, you know, because you've made do. You know, I often say that a lot of women who really, really care about fashion and design are bred in the bone designers because they've had to be. You know, I know that I used to buy, you know, men's shirts and cut this off and put that on and maybe embellish here, and I would literally redesign clothes that were not made for me at all in order to have some modicum of you know, fashion relevance.
Yeah, and to find something that could feel like you, who you are. I feel like
exactly.
that's for me. I'm always trying to figure
It's
out like,
identity. It's identity. It's as it is a huge part of your identity. So yeah, that's why it was so important. I also didn't see anything. It actually really made me angry, and I'm sure that I'm not the only person who is incredibly frustrated when there's a willful kind of ignorance of the needs of the people who are purchasing your things. It doesn't matter what it is. When you feel like, you know, the person who's making these things for you has absolutely no idea or has absolutely no real interest. And we thought, if we're going to do this, like, you know, let's create a new country here. Let's do this right. Let's, you know, make sure that the fit is amazing and that, you know, the size 26 fits like the size 6. If it's meant to end at the knee, it's going to end at the knee. And it's not just going to indifferently be, you know, stretched across a, you know, a bigger mannequin somewhere. We thought, let's find fantastic fabrics. Let's make this a brand that anyone will covet, regardless of what size they are. And if we do this 00 to 40, it's because we don't want to talk about size. It's not because we want to open the conversation. It's the exact opposite. Like, if we do 00 to 40, then there's no conversation to be had. It's just pick what you like, pick what you want to have, and everything else is irrelevant.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I love what you're doing. Obviously, inclusive is a big part of your brand and kind of what you're doing. I feel like in today's world, like when it comes to marketing, there's so many brands kind of stepping out and coming out with like inclusive sizing or inclusive this or inclusive that. I'm curious to hear from your perspective what that word actually means. So what does inclusive mean to universal standard?
Inclusive means that we haven't reached the point yet where we don't need to use it, quite frankly. It is a phrase that we use to define something that shouldn't exist, ultimately. So clothes should be just clothes. You shouldn't have to describe them as plus size or straight size or inclusive or whatever. We have to right now because people would never find their way to them. So it's a matter of being practical. But ultimately, you know, from our perspective, clothes should just be made for women. That's it. You know, and the only thing that you should ask yourself is, do I like this color? You know, can I afford this? You know, where does it fit into my wardrobe? Whatever it is that you ask yourself normally, aside from, oh my gosh, I really love that, but there's no point in me even like, you know, crossing the threshold of the store because the only thing I can buy in there is a scented candle. So I think from that perspective, this is the sort of the macro view of the change we would love to see. And this is what we're spearheading as a brand and a company. But I think that a lot of people and a lot of brands are sort of, I think if you're being nice, you would say dabbling. There is this kind of toe dip going on. There is, you know, some brands, they want to be seen as being on the right side of this change, you know, without necessarily investing a lot of money in doing it as perhaps it should be done. I think that, you know, I think that there are a lot of brands that, you know, will go an extra 2 sizes up from their normal size range and call themselves size inclusive, which, you know, they're more inclusive than perhaps they were, but I don't think that you can just throw that blanket statement on anything. I think that there are a lot of brands that will make bigger clothes to augment their entire line, but they will only be sold online and not in the stores. It's a bit of a moot point, you know, in this situation, but I think we all understand what that means. I think there are brands that will create a completely different capsule that has nothing to do with their normal designs. You know, so there's this constant segregation, and it's actually a lot more complex psychologically than a lot of people realize. It's not just about oh, you know, big girls, small girls, you know, it's really, it's so insidious that a lot of people just can't get past that binary plus size, straight size, plus size, straight size. They just can't get past it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that this is one of the reasons that we're in the situation that we're in. And as soon as we stop segregating these groups of women into two, that's when we're going to start, you know, making a difference to all of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like this constant othering, like over there versus like the normal, which is so absurd.
And the irony is that you have, you know, just speaking about the American population, we have 70% of women who are not being catered to versus 30% who have everything. We are literally burning clothing stocks because they're not being sold, or because they're so fast fashion that you can wear them 3 times and then it's over. We really have to rethink everything. And strangely enough, this horrible, difficult time that we're going through, you know, could, in the best case scenario, act like a reset in some ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I've been talking to a lot of people about, trying to understand what they think may come on the other side of this. So are you feeling like maybe it's like optimistic, like it could be a reset, and maybe some of these issues that we're seeing come to the surface more will be addressed and gradually shift? Or
I think they are already shifting gradually. I think that our job now is to maintain the momentum and to actually show those people who are afraid of the brand risk that, you know, going broader might represent, or don't understand, you know, what it would do to their revenue if they did that. We're happy to be the litmus test. We're happy to say, here's how this can be done. It can be done beautifully. It can be done to the benefit of absolutely everyone involved. Certainly the fashion industry in terms of creativity and the idea of being much more inclusive and much more diverse in every sense of the word. Certainly the apparel industry in terms of, let's face it, they haven't exactly been doing brilliantly. And this would definitely bring 70% of female consumers. These are women who are not just shopping for themselves, by the way, when they cross the threshold into your physical or virtual store. They're buying for their husbands and their children and their mothers and their sisters. And you have just pretended for this long that they don't really matter. So once we bring back together these groups of people that have been segregated, I think it's going to be to the huge benefit of absolutely everyone, especially the consumer.
Mm-hmm. It's like, in addition to leaving out that 70% that you're talking about, like leaving these women out as far as having offerings, isn't it also just like really bad business? I mean,
it's terrible business. And we've talked about this so much. Everyone always asks the questions like, here in America, really somebody would leave all this money on the table?
Right.
But I think that it shows you how calcified this prejudice is. I think it's the last acceptable prejudice against big bodies. You know, everyone has something to say. Everyone has a reason why this shouldn't be done. It makes absolutely no sense. And we believe that it's time to change that. I think a lot of people understand that it's time. We just want to move things along and keep the momentum up so that we really bring in a new normal.
Yeah, definitely. There's something that you do that is very unique to your brand that I wanted to hear more about, and that's your Fit Liberty.
Yes.
That's like, I was reading more about it, and I'm just like astounded by how incredible it is. So yeah, can you share more about that, and what led you to be able to actually do it?
Well, for one thing, we really, we are innovators as a brand. We really want to bring newness to the apparel industry because we have a unique perspective. We have a unique idea. And I think that a lot of fashion brands could, you know, adopt these kinds of initiatives in order to make women's lives better, in order to make business better, in order to really create, like I said, previously a new normal. And basically we are a direct-to-consumer brand, but when we started opening showrooms, we started to see people coming in, and it was the first time that we were kind of face to face with our consumer. It was very interesting to see what was happening, because you know, women would stand in front of the mirror and you can just see this conversation that they're having inside their own head. Like, they really saw their current body as a temporary condition. Mm-hmm. It's like, this is not really me. You know, I started a diet yesterday, so I'm going to be Naomi Campbell in, you know, 2 weeks. I'm not going to buy this, or I'm going to buy this and make sure that it's really too small for me to wear now. We all have those pieces in our wardrobe, right? The mm-hmm. ones that are hanging there, and it's like,
one day
you never got here, they just taunt us, right? Mm-hmm. And it's a psychological and emotionally damaging game that we play with ourselves, because this is what we've been taught to do, because mm-hmm. the archetype of beauty that's out there is designed to make you judge yourself by how far you are from that. Mm-hmm. So the further you are from, you know, a Carly Kloss or a Gigi Hadid, the less you're meant to think of yourself. And that message is horrible. So you're constantly in a situation where you're trying to avoid yourself. And that doesn't matter what size you are. This happens to women who are size 4. This happens to women who are size 24. It happens to all of us because it's bred in the bone. Mm-hmm. And what we wanted to do is shut that down. We thought, how do you make someone buy for themselves as they are? I think that what we wanted to do was to just shut that bully that lives in our heads, just shut that bully up. Mm-hmm. And the way we decided to do that was to say, listen, buy for the size that you are right now. Whatever that is, whatever your plans are for the future, whether you think you might gain weight or you think you might lose weight, whatever difference your body is going to experience over the course of a year, wear the clothes, enjoy the clothes, feel good about yourself. And if you should go up in size or you should go down in size, just send back the clothes and we will send you your new size for free. And I think a lot of people initially said, wait, what? Like, what's the catch? And we often actually laugh about the fact that every time we hear what's the catch, we know we have a good idea, because there's never a catch. This is the whole point of doing something earnestly and making a change in the world is we're not trying to catch anyone out. This is just you feeling good about yourself, not worrying about having to re-spend that money, not worrying about whether or not you're going to hit that size. Whatever it is that's going through your head, you don't need to think those things. The only thing you need to think about is, do I like this on me as I am? And that's the healthy relationship that people should be having with the mirror.
Mm-hmm. It's such a beautiful approach from a brand, because you're like thinking so much about your shopper. And I feel like it's so rare today.
Well, it's thinking about the shopper because it's us. We're the shopper, and we've gone through all of this. So we know exactly what's broken. We try very hard to get in there and fix it for real, not just to the benefit of the brand or some sparkly, shiny reputational thing. We really actually want to change things because it would be beneficial to everyone, including us as a brand. I think if you do the right thing, ultimately, it's beneficial to everyone.
Yeah, totally.
And I think we kind of knew we had something when we realized that all the clothes that come back, because they're such great quality clothes, they have a second and a third life. So we started working with 2 women's charities. One is Dress for Success, and the other is First Steps, which is part of the Coalition for the Homeless. And we just send all the returns their way. And all these women who are trying to get back into the workforce after, you know, whatever hardship they've had to endure, suddenly have access to clothing that, you know, wasn't there before, because most of the clothing offered in larger sizes, for example, was fast fashion. So it was just, you know, in the garbage heap in the landfills. So there was this elegant kind of solution and a little circular economy that it created. So we thought this must be right because it just makes sense.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. On that note, because you're talking about like the quality behind your clothes and you have like that as one of your kind of key tenets, I'm curious, you know, like if you can share a little bit more about your supply chain, because we talk about that a lot with the Sustainable Fashion Forum, and I do on my podcast as well. If you can talk a little bit about supply chain and I guess how you select your fabrics and that kind of thing.
So I think that this is one of the things that, you know, I was talking about earlier. This is a time to reset for everyone. We've always paid attention to the factories that we work with, you know, how they treat their workers, what certifications they have. But here's what I would also like to say to whatever viewers or readers or whoever is thinking about this. I think it is also the responsibility, not just of the fashion house or the brand, but it is the responsibility of the consumer to understand that the most damaging and unsustainable thing that they can do in terms of apparel and fashion is to continue participating in fast fashion. I think that when you are buying things that are so incredibly temporary, you know, it's semi-disposable the moment you buy it. And we've gotten into this gluttonous kind of, I don't mean to preach, because I know not everyone can afford to buy things that are a little more expensive. I understand that. So I'm not blanketing anything, but we have as a society gotten so used to, you know, doing the hauls, the video hauls. Do you really need a haul? Do you need 30 pieces, you know, half of which you probably will never wear or will just automatically be relegated to your sleeping t-shirts drawer or whatever it is.
Yeah, they'll hang in the closet with tags on forever.
Exactly. And or you'll use them like a couple of times and then they're ready for the trash. Why not buy something, even if it does cost a little more? You'll just buy this one thing and you will wear it and wear it and wear it and you'll have it for ages. Remember when we used to be able to go deep into our mom's closets and dig something out and go, oh my God, this is so cool now, Mom. You know, that doesn't happen anymore because we've just become these insane consumers of, you know, more is better. And I think that this is part of the reset that's taking place.
Yeah, so true. I feel like I think about this often because I have a lot of pieces that I pulled from my mom, from her closet, and I just had a daughter 4 months ago, and so
congratulations.
Thank you. So I keep thinking, what are like the heirloom pieces that I'll be able to hand down to her? I feel like if the pieces that were my mom's are still surviving, that will be a better option possibly than some of what exists now.
Absolutely. I think that there's a 360 sort of idea to all of this, you know, the ability to have nice things, have less of these nice things, but really sort of develop your own taste, your own perspective, your own look that you really feel good about. The idea that, you know, you are not damaging the environment by supporting, you know, when you're buying a t-shirt that, or a shirt or a skirt that costs as much as a sandwich, somebody's paying the price somewhere. You should be asking yourself why that's so cheap, you know, and it actually has a knock-on effect to the lives of many, many people, including your own, whether you're like, you know, living in New York or in Bangladesh. If you're the end user, you're contributing to a problem. So I think there's a mind shift that needs to happen. And we need to be just a little bit less gluttonous about stuff, you know, having stuff. More is just, it's not better. It just isn't.
Yeah, I totally agree. I really try to work on thinking about cost per wear more and more, just because I like the way of framing that up, because I think it is so much like psychologically we've been trained that, oh, it should be just that cheap, and we've been trained to brag about it being cheap. And and now like every once in a while I'll catch myself like even saying like, oh, I got it thrifted for only this, and then I stop myself and I'm like, that's not like, that's not how I should be valuing it, you know?
Exactly. Exactly. And it's amazing when you buy great quality classic pieces, the amount of wear that you can get out of, and I'm not here to tell anyone what their style should be. If you love wearing, you know, leopard print, and I think that's completely valid. You should find your own fashion voice and you should wear it with absolute joy.
Mm-hmm.
It would just be nice if that was somehow slightly more augmented by other values as well,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that that is that's the world that we want to live in, and I think that the writing is kind of on the wall, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. I was
Yeah.
reading about your buy one, give one program that you have right now, connected to support medical workers. Can you share a little more about that? I think it's cool to see how brands are kind of like responding to COVID-19 right now, and you know, I guess getting innovative with things that are important.
I think um, I think this is one of those things where you see people rise to the occasion, and we're seeing so many brands doing amazing things. You know, Christian Siriano was one of the first people to raise his hand and say, "Yes, I make incredible gowns, but guess what? You know, I'm going to make masks now."
Right.
And we also obviously wanted to contribute in whatever way we could. We're still a small business. We're not even 5 years old yet. But we knew it was very important to contribute. So the first thing we did was we actually offered, you know, comfort clothing for free to the medical community. And we wound up donating about $250,000 worth of clothing, just because we know that these people are working 20 hours a day, and it's just, there's, you know, we wanted them to feel as comfortable as possible. That was within our reach to contribute.
Mm-hmm.
Then we needed to sort of, there's always a balance. So we want to continue, we want to broaden this because we want to continue this as far as possible. And so the best way we thought of doing that was to do a buy one and one gets donated, so that we can keep that rolling along rather than just stopping and saying, okay, well, that's it. Now we really have to, you know, think about the business. We're really thinking about a lot of things, including trying to create masks, which is really not that simple, because any initiative that might take any kind of governmental support is now, you know, they're really weighed down with requests. So everything is taking so much longer. But we are knocking on every door and ringing every doorbell that we possibly can in order to expand what we donate and how we help, you know, in our own way, in our own capacity as a company.
It's amazing. I think it is really interesting to see how brands are responding, and I think it's like you said earlier, it's an opportunity to kind of press reset, and maybe just like if you can pivot or shift your approach in a subtle way right now, I think it's an opportunity to like do something necessary and to do something helpful, but also to kind of show what you're really all about. Almost like the soul of companies is coming more to the forefront.
Exactly. It's that filter, you know, it's that sort of like, you know, these kinds of difficult, horrible situations bring us closer together as a community, you know. I personally think it makes people kinder.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's what I love seeing.
definitely, definitely. One other quick question before we go to the viewers' questions. I'm curious what your favorite universal standard pieces are right now, like your go-to pieces that you're wearing all the time.
Look, I'll be honest, I'm a black turtleneck girl. I wear them. It's just the easiest thing in the world to look put together, and you can wear it on its own or under a jacket. It can be casual, it can be dressed up. It's super versatile. You know, I'm, you know, as you can see, I'm wearing one right now. It's just turtlenecks in general are probably among my favorite. I'm wearing on the bottom, surprise, surprise, I'm not in my underwear. I'm actually wearing satin cargo pants, also in black. So the only difference is, you know, there's sort of a sheen on the bottom and a mat on the top, and it feels like pajamas. And you know, I can look presentable no matter what I'm doing, whether it's just me in my apartment or whether I need to, you know, walk Gracie or go to the store for supplies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. I'm a big turtleneck fan as well. I was wearing a black turtleneck yesterday under a dress.
There you go. They have a lot of uses.
They do. Yeah. I love it because I don't know, it just has like this extra elegance about it. I don't know. I love turtlenecks.
Yeah, there's a completeness there. You know, that's the word I use. You know, there's a completeness to certain pieces that, you know, they have legs. Like you can make them totally casual, you can dress them up, and they're sort of a little world onto themselves. And to me, that's a black turtleneck. I have a lot of them in different fabrics, and it just makes me happy to wear one. I don't know.
That's what it's all about, isn't it?
Yep.
I mean, for me, that's what fashion is all about.
I think the ultimate freedom is to be able to put on your clothes and not have to think about what you're wearing anymore, because you know it's what you want to wear and it looks the way it's supposed to look, and you feel great about it. That's a huge freedom.
That's such a good way of putting it, because it is like you could walk out of your house sometimes, or I'll walk out of my house and I'll get in the car and I'm like, I don't like this. Why am I wearing this? I'm like bummed about it.
Imagine if your whole life was like that though, and you just had to get used to it. And, you know, for a lot of women, that's been the reality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good thing for me to think about and put in perspective. Cool. Well, let's look at some questions from our listeners. Thank you so much. My mom has thought nice or exciting clothes weren't for her for years, and you are the reason she's excited about it. Okay, so
oh, that's nice.
More of a comment, but that's awesome. Let's see. How does Universal Standard have affordable prices with a higher consumption of better fabrics or the positive sizes?
Yeah, I understand that question. That's a very good question. So first of all, being direct to consumer makes a huge difference. So we don't have the markup that other brands do in order to sell in department stores or in other stores. That would make our clothes probably 3 times as expensive as they are currently. And when it comes to the size range, which is the largest commercially available size range in the world, I understand, if I understand the question, she's saying, well, how can you afford to sell a size 40 at the same price as a size 00? Yes, there's a huge difference in costs when making this, but we were very, you know, like I said, we created a new country and we created this brand. We really wanted to do something thoughtfully and in a way that didn't rest on the laurels of all the brands that tried it before. We didn't, you know, our total ignorance was bliss in the sense that it allowed us to take chances that perhaps others wouldn't take. So because we started originally from a size 10 to a size 28, we understood what the pricing would be, because we always knew we would charge the same amount of money regardless of the size, even though the cost of making them would be very, very different. We thought that even from a psychological and emotional perspective, and just doing what's right, you know, you shouldn't have to tax people for being a certain size. So we worked that into our price structure, and because we were direct to consumer, we could still afford to be, you know, democratically priced.
Yeah, amazing. Here's a question. How do you choose models? Is it possible to apply to be a model?
Of course, it's always possible. We do a mix of things. We go to agencies, but we also, because once you get to the bigger sizes, there's no such thing as models at the agency. The idea is that, you know, we can go out into the world of Instagram and find people who are really extraordinary. We've actually launched several very high profile, you know, careers in modeling for people who were not even necessarily influencers at that stage, but we just thought they were so tremendously interesting and beautiful and worthy of attention and worthy of you know, being pedestalized, that you know, we brought them to the world through our own advertising and marketing, and it's been wonderful.
That's awesome. Super cool. Another question that popped up was, how do you choose what your fit model is, and like what is your base?
So we do something very, very unusual in this sense as well. We actually, every time we launch a new category, we fit on every single size fit model, which is kind of unheard of in the business.
Yeah. Wow.
It's very time consuming and it's very expensive, I won't lie. But this is how we know when you line everyone up from a 00 to a size 40, and that dress that's supposed to end just below the knee ends just below the knee on the size 00 and just below the knee on a size 40, that's when you know you've done the job right. The fit is what it should be. You know, we do something called micro grading. So instead of just using an indifferent formula that just kind of, you know, adds this way and this way and this way and this way until it's like making a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy. You know, by the time you get to the bigger sizes, it doesn't look anything like the original intent of the design. So we actually, you know, look at everything from the collar size, because we want it to look native to the body that's wearing it, to the cuff width, to the how does it look on this size and how does it look on this size, and they should look proportionally the same.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And yeah, in order to do that, the only way to do that is to actually do the full lineup.
And I think that's something that we don't talk about enough in the sustainability conversation is fit, because so many pieces that, you know, we have in our closet don't really fit properly. And that fit just like adds to longevity, and, you know, it becomes something you go back to.
Absolutely. You know, let's face it, the things that we love the most in our closets are the things that sit easily on our bodies, that make our bodies feel great inside of them. So absolutely makes the biggest difference. And once you do, it's not easy. Like, I'm not going to lie. It takes a concerted effort. You have to care about what you're doing. You know, you can't just capitalize on this consumer because, you know, you can make bigger sizes, you know, in order for it to fit properly. And one thing is not going to fit everyone, obviously, because the topography of the body changes tremendously once you get past a certain size. But pick a lane and make it perfect for that body type, as perfect as you can get it. And, you know, it might not be great for this woman, but it'll be great for this woman. And the next piece you make will be the other way around. So everything is worth trying. And you can surprise yourself when you see the engineering that goes into the pieces, whether it's the stretch of the fabric that all of our fabrics have without looking like they do. You know, the slightly curved, you know, trompe l'oeil hems that don't necessarily look like they're curved, but they don't cut you straight across. The way the collars are finished so that you can button it all the way up, even at a size whatever, and not feel like it's suffocating you because it just wasn't made for someone with your, you know, the size here, you know, in their tech packs. So we really put a tremendous amount of thought into everything we make, and we make the stuff that we want to own ourselves. So that's, I guess, the bottom line.
Yeah, I love the deep attention to detail when it comes to fit. I think that's so huge.
Oh yeah, it's everything. It's everything.
Yeah. Let's see what we have for other questions. I noticed there's no yellow at the moment. Is it hard to make ethically or just out of fashion?
Neither. It's totally doable, and we will be going into more colors. That's one of our big concentrations for this year and the coming year, is actually broadening both our color ranges and our prints.
If money, time, feasibility, marketability were not a question, what dream clothing item would you want to make?
Wow. I honestly think that we already make everything that I want to make. At least for everyday life, you know, if it's a special occasion kind of thing, then we're talking perhaps something else. But, you know, we use everything from cashmeres to the finest Italian merino wools to satin back crepes from France to, you know, just wonderful touch hand feel fabrics. I really don't, I think this is part of the appeal for me, is the fact that we really do explore all our deepest desires in terms of what's possible out there and what looks fantastic across all body sizes, and then we make it.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Let's see. I think that there's one more question if you want to answer it quickly. How do you take care of extra unsold inventories?
How do we take care of, well, fortunately we don't have a lot of that. But one of the things that we have found is generosity is never wasted on our consumers. Our customers have always responded to the generosity from the brand. And actually, Paulina, my business partner, is brilliant at thinking these things up. But I remember the very first year when we were still working out of my 1-bedroom apartment, you know, her idea was that for the few things that we did have left over, she actually went into the wish lists of our customers and sent them to our customers as gifts, as a surprise.
Wow.
So it was, you know, we work to surprise and delight our customers. We deeply believe in generosity, not just towards our customers, but towards, you know, the institutions that we believe in, the charities that we support. I think that that's just our DNA, and it works well for us.
I feel like on so many levels, you just want to make people's day.
Yeah, and they make our day, you know, because people sense authenticity. They know it when they see it.
Mm-hmm. So true. So true.
Yeah.
Well, Alexandra, thank you so much for joining me. It's so amazing to learn more about all the incredible work you're doing at Universal Standard. I see all these comments coming through just raving about your brand. So you have a lot of fans out there.
Thank you so much. This was really fun. Thank you. And thanks to everyone who joined in. I'm going to try and read everything I can.
Yeah. Take care and have fun with Gracie. And I hope we get to chat again soon.
Pleasure. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.